Hello, Year 11. This is Miss Brooks. This will hopefully be a short screencast to look at some of the common issues that are cropping up in the language analysis essay. Now, this is not specific to my class, this is across the year level, but Miss Handel and I had a little chat about it and thought we put together a couple of short screencasts to help you identify some of the mistakes that we're seeing and that we would like to see eliminated, preferably before the SAC, but before year 12 as well. The first one is topic sentences. Within your topic sentence, you need to identify who the speaker or author is that is making the argument. It's not good enough to just say, ebooks are a welcome technology because they make reading more accessible, the experience of reading can be more enjoyable, and they will help reduce the burden of heavy textbooks on children. You need to say, Mrs. Elliot argues that, or ebooks are a welcome technology, argues Mrs. Elliot, because they, You need to specify who's making that argument in the first sentence. It's not good enough to leave it until here. You need to put it in the first sentence. The second thing that I wanted to talk to you about is saying the word technique explicitly. So a smaller technique used by Elliot is her positive tone when she shows that she is an early adopter and someone who likes change. Readers are positioned, that should be, to see Mrs. Elliot as a modernist who is enthusiastic about the growing popularity of ebooks. Right, rather than saying a small technique, you could just say that Elliot initiates her piece with a positive tone. You do not need to say the word technique, and usually you don't even need to say the word argument necessarily. There are plenty of other vocabulary choices out there, and you have a wealth of resources available to you to use instead of saying that word. So I would encourage you to get your thesaurus out and use the resources that you've been given in class, but you need to avoid explicitly saying she uses the technique of a rhetorical question. She uses the technique of the rule of three. She uses the technique of, appealing to the hip pocket nerve. Just get straight into the technique. So you can just say, appealing to the hip pocket nerve, Elliot seeks to. The rhetorical question encourages readers to, or forces readers to consider, etc. So just jump straight to the technique. Don't worry about putting the word in there. Talking about the image. A lot of people are not explaining how the image reiterates the broader or overall argument that's being made, the contention of the author. So a phrase that you can use to introduce it is, the image accompanying Young's piece reiterates, and you could go and explain that. And here I've done a little bit of an explanation or a little bit of a sample of what you might find in a higher achieving piece. So Young emphatically denies the government's claim that today's youth are unconcerned about politics. She suggests that this assumption is foolish through questioning apathy, to which she sharply replies, I think not. The image of young people lined up in Federation Square. So I'm not only saying that there's an image, I'm saying what's in the image. And I've got that right there from the caption, and you can do the same. Waiting to cast their vote. Further underscores, so that's the same thing as reiterate, it's a synonym, this point, illustrating that today's youth are both passionate and politically engaged. And I should have actually put those two words in quotation marks because I've taken them directly from the text. These two elements, that is the questioning and the image, work together to systematically undermine the evidence of the VEC, which is what was quoted in an earlier part of her article, and the subsequent assumptions they, the VEC, have made about Australia's youth, and thus question the validity of their past decision to maintain the current age of voting, rather than reduce it to 16 years of age. So I'm showing how she's using this image and her questioning here to undermine the opposition's argument, because she's doing that to effectively position the youth to see that the VEC got it wrong. teenagers are not apathetic. They are involved in politics and they want to have their say. So that's what that image is about, and that's what she's trying to say in her text, and that's how you need to go about describing it. There are a couple of other slides here that can help you with some sentence starters and vocab to talk about the visuals. So this is just a screenshot. Sorry, it's a bit rough, but reinforcing the author's contention, the image of da da da, complementing the argument da da da, visually representing the author's argument. So there are quite a few there. You can pause this and jot those down if you want to keep them. Again, this is some adjectives to describe the persuasive impact of the visual. So you might say the shameful image of, the heartbreaking image, the troubling picture, the pleasant view, you know, whatever it is, you can use any of those words there. And if you're looking to develop your vocab, these are a few very good word choices that you could put down in your folder. Common issue, the word contends. Contends means to assert something as a position in an argument. So you can say, Young contends that Australian youth are capable of and should have the right to vote. That would belong in the introduction where you're stating the author's contention. I haven't seen this used incorrectly too much, but I do know this is a concern for a couple of other teachers. So please make sure when you use contends, you could substitute that word for argues, because that's how it works. If that's not what you're saying, Young argues, Young contends, then that's not how it should be used. So think about it when you're writing it. Can I substitute the word for argues? If I can't, then I shouldn't be using it. The other one that I am familiar with that I've this misuse of is conveys. Conveys is a similar word to shows. So conveys and shows should not be next to each other in a sentence. They should be one or the other. So if you're using conveys, think about whether you could substitute it in for shows, because they have a similar meaning. All right, common issue, meta-language. Meta-language means language that describes language. And I can feel you going, what do you want about, Miss Brooks? But what this means in a language analysis essay is the language appropriate to analysing argument. The analysing argument, oh gosh, that's terribly worded. To analysing argument in the written form, really. So, for example, it's about using language that is appropriate for analysing argument. And in this case, you are looking at things like, and I've bolded the phrases, the speaker positions her audience, capturing the audience's attention with her assertive title, Young sets out to. So it's about using language that's appropriate to analyse. Some people are just retelling or summarising the article without actually analysing it. You need to tell us and you need to show us that you understand how the audience that this piece is intended for, which in this case it is young people yourselves, how you are supposed to be positioned by the different techniques that Young uses. So when she uses a rhetorical question, how are you being positioned? And how are you supposed to support her argument based on that? When she uses that image, the same thing. When she uses the statistics in the second page, how is that supposed to affect you? Why would it persuade you? So think about how you're describing it and make sure you're coming back to this. All right, I'm going to just brush over this one, but you can pause on here if you like. This is a kind of sample framework for how to write out a paragraph if you wanted. I've just taken that from something I found online, so use it as you like, but I'm going to skip on forward. This is just quite a visual reminder of how you should set out your paragraph, but basically it's you need to have your argument at the beginning, you identify a technique, you always include an example of that technique, and then you describe the intended effect and how it's intended to affect the audience and convince them to agree with your argument or the argument being made in the piece. And this is a sample paragraph, and I've colored these boxes over here because they are what is going on in each of the sections. So this one is for the article we've done this week. Young emphasizes the powerlessness of young people to make their own decisions. She lists, that's the technique, the recent parliamentary debates. And that's the example. So rather than listing like she did in the piece, she talked about the L to P plate, she talked about climate change policy. They've just said recent parliamentary debates. That is the example. There's no need for more information. Which play a significant role in young people's future. This evokes outrage amongst the youth as they can clearly identify the breadth of decisions, which means the wide range of decisions, being made about youth without youth input. This aims to encourage them to want to the right to vote. Young uses a sarcastic and conversational tone technique, using terms such as example, spot the pattern here, you guessed it, to highlight the inability of young people to control issues that directly affect them. Young people are more likely to be swayed by conversational language because the writer appears genuine to readers. This further prompts readers to take control and change the current system. The sarcasm is directed against adults who make these decisions without youth input. This tends to gather support from the audience of young, interested youth, creating a cohesive mentality against the lawmakers. The inclusive language such as you, your, we've, so that's, you just can summarize 3 quick words there as evidence of that point, as an example. You don't need to write the full sentence, just the keyword. Encourages readers to support Young's argument as they feel a personal involvement in the issue and are therefore more likely to take action. Okay, and that contributes to the overall argument. They are more likely to take action, which is what she's trying to do. She's trying to get them to take action to address this problem of their powerlessness. These are some phrases that you can use to start out your paragraph, or in the body of your paragraph, really. The author emphasizes or underscores, underlines, repeats, etc. So again, you can pause this and use these. If you would like this in a hard copy, come and see me. I'm happy to make some copies or make it available online. Again, some more sentence starters there for you. And the last one is conclusions. These need to be short, sharp, and to the point. Some people are getting either doing far too much or far too little. So have a little look at this one and see if it takes your fancy. It's not perfect, I will definitely point that out, but it is one to think about in terms of how you sum up your argument. Young finishes by asking readers to sign the petition for the voting age to be lowered. She creates a sense of togetherness when referring to the 5,000 young people who have already signed the petition. Young further stresses the importance of the petition while reminding readers of the political involvement, highlighting their power to make a difference. Her frustrated tone supports the urgency in the title, now further forcing readers to act. Now, I haven't evaluated it. I haven't judged whether it was convincing or not. That is not my job in language analysis. My job is just to say how they've tried to position and how they've tried to get their readers or their audience or whomever it's being addressed to respond. That's all I want you to tell me, is how they're supposed to respond. And in this case, she wants them to go and vote. That's what she wants them to do. All right, that is the last slide. I'm going to tie it off there. Hopefully this was helpful. I'd love some feedback. Let me know. Otherwise, speak to your teacher if you've got a specific question about something in here. Good luck and good night.